Listen up, sweetheart. This isn't some yoga studio where people come to chase inner peace. This is where real operators earn their place. This is where we find out who belongs and who's just hanging around for the view. Keep up, or someone's getting hurt. His voice dripped with arrogance, echoing off the cold steel walls of the hangar. A few uneasy chuckles rippled through the circle of Rangers standing around Captain Mason Red. Their smirks mirrored his, shallow copies of borrowed confidence. At the center stood Petty Officer First Class Harper Shaw, unmoving. Her face, framed by a tight braid of dark hair, remained calm, unreadable, precise. She didn't blink or frown. She simply stood there, her weight balanced perfectly, hands relaxed at her sides. The silence around her thickened until it pulled the air from the room. And Red, a man who thrived on the sound of his own voice, began to fidget. Up on the observation deck, Colonel Everett Kane watched without a word. He didn't see what Red saw, not a small woman out of her depth, but something entirely different. He noticed the stance, subtle, fluid, perfectly aligned. Her feet, shoulder-width apart, stayed loose. Her knees bent just slightly, posture humming with quiet readiness. It was the stillness of a predator conserving energy, the kind of poise Kane had only ever seen in old, grainy photos of Tier 1 operators from wars long past. He leaned forward, eyes narrowing as curiosity replaced his usual granite calm while, down below, Red's voice boomed. Loud, pompous, full of borrowed authority, he demonstrated a takedown and, of course, picked Shaw as his unwilling partner, yanking her roughly and twisting her arm while he explained the move like she was a toddler. Then, for emphasis, drove his knee into the back of her neck and held it there too long, a cheap, ugly show of dominance that made a few soldiers suck in breath. It was petty, it was cruel, but Shaw said nothing. When he finally let go, she rose without using her hands, smoothed her uniform with two quick, effortless motions, and met him dead in the eye. Calm, steady, unreadable, offering no anger, no flinch, only a quiet control that made everyone uneasy. The next day brought the final test of the Joint Service Urban Warfare course. A full-scale hostage rescue inside the kill house, a maze of hallways and traps where paint rounds hit like punches, and every mistake left a mark. And Red, gleaming with smug confidence, ran the briefing, scanning faces until his gaze landed on Shaw, then said, with that thin, cruel smile, "All right, we need a point for Alpha Team. First through the door, first to face the enemy, first to set the tone. It takes speed, focus, and aggression." And without missing a beat, named Petty Officer Shaw as Alpha's point. An obvious setup designed to make failure not just possible, but spectacular and public. Because if she choked, the whole run would collapse into a pile of simulated casualties. Captain Joe's stories, it was his final desperate attempt to shatter her composure, to force some flicker of emotion that would prove she didn't belong. He wanted hesitation, defiance, fear, but once again, he misjudged her completely. Harper Shaw gave a single, sharp nod, just a precise dip of her chin. "Understood, Captain," she said evenly, her voice stripped of emotion. She turned away, posture rigid, and walked toward the gear racks, dismissing his petty display without a word, her attention already locked on the mission ahead. The others watched, a mix of pity and grim fascination tightening their faces. They saw a lamb led to slaughter. But from the observation perch, Colonel Everett Kane saw something entirely different. He watched the ritual of her preparation, every magazine seal checked, every strap tightened with economical precision, breath measured into calm rhythm, no wasted movement, no uncertainty. each action refined by endless repetition. This wasn't a soldier warming up. This was a craftsman tuning her instrument before the performance. Her silence wasn't emptiness. It was sharpened focus, something Captain Mason Red could neither read nor respect. Outside the kill house, the air thickened. Alpha Team gave her space, their faces drawn with unease and resentment. They knew they'd been turned into collateral in Red's vendetta. Shaw stood apart, rifle low-ready, eyes fixed on the heavy steel door that led into simulated chaos, a statue of compressed potential, perfectly calm. In the observation booth, monitors flickered to life as role-players with simunition rifles took their positions. Colonel Kane folded his arms, watching a faint twitch at the corner of her jaw, the slow blink of someone walking through patterns she'd solved 1,000 times. "On my mark," Red barked through comms. The breacher set the charge. Alpha prepared. 5, 4, 3, 2. Detonation thundered through the structure, the steel door buckling inward as smoke poured from the frame. "Go, go, go!" Red yelled, and she moved, not running, but erupting into deliberate, contained aggression. Shaw sliced through the smoke like a ghost through the seam. The first hostile raised his weapon but never fired. 2 red splats bloomed on his chest, perfect double tap, and he collapsed before realizing it. She swept the room in stride, no pause, no hesitation, her movement liquid, slipping from room to hall with seamless precision. Another man peeked a corner. 2 red marks on his helmet. Down. 2 more crouched behind a desk. She didn't shoot from the doorway. She hugged the wall, pivoted smoothly on a heel, and hit them from an unseen angle. Pop, 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 both targets down. The entire exchange lasted less than 5 seconds. The observation booth fell into stunned silence. Only the hum of monitors remained, the distant rhythm of her rifle echoing through the speakers. Ava stared at the main, feed tracing Shaw's path through the kill house in a glowing blue line. A line that didn't just clear rooms, but carved through them with surgical precision. Red's constant shouting over comms had gone silent. He stood frozen in the staging area, mouth slightly open, staring at the same live feed on his tablet. The arrogance had drained from his face, leaving it a pale, stunned white. Alpha Team had barely stumbled through the first room in a noisy, clumsy mess. Shaw was already 3 rooms ahead, a solitary predator moving in another dimension, her every step controlled, her rifle an extension of pure instinct. Targets appeared, angles calculated, threats processed in heartbeats. A man in a window never fired. She dropped him before his sights aligned. Another crouched behind a desk fell to a single perfect headshot that left the simulated hostage untouched. She moved like a symphony of lethal precision. What was meant to be a long exercise ended in 47 seconds flat. The final target fell, and the all-clear tone screamed across the speakers. 11 hostiles neutralized, 0 friendly or civilian hits. Statistically impossible. Her blue path on the schematic looked like a surgeon's incision, clean and direct, while every previous elite run resembled a shaky scribble. The silence broke when a young lieutenant at the console whispered, "Incredible," his voice trembling. Down on the floor, Alpha Team finally caught up to find Harper Shaw in the last room. Calm, performing a tactical reload, swapping magazines with quiet efficiency. She wasn't even breathing hard. No adrenaline, no theatrics, just routine precision. Then Red's voice cracked through the comms, disbelief strangling him. "That's not possible. Run the clock again. Check the sensors." He couldn't accept it. He'd rather believe the multi-million-dollar facility failed than admit the woman he'd ridiculed had shattered his entire understanding of skill. His fragile ego had been crushed in under a minute. Colonel Everett Kane rose from the console, his movements heavy with authority. He stepped through the booth door, his face unreadable, officers parting before him like water disturbed by gravity. Ignoring Red's muttering about malfunctioning sensors, Kane descended the steel stairs, each boot step echoing through the hangar. The chatter died. Alpha and the role players stood aside, brushing paint off their gear, watching him cross the floor toward the final room. Shaw knelt there, methodically field-stripping her weapon for cleaning, each motion as smooth as during the run. She looked up when the colonel approached, expression calm, ready to stand, but Kane lifted a hand. Turning to the young lieutenant clutching his tablet, his voice cut through the silence. Low, steady, commanding enough to fill the entire hangar. Pull up the service record for Petty Officer First Class Harper Shaw. Authorization: Kane Echo Lima India Alpha Sierra. Read it, aloud, for Captain Red's education and anyone else still making assumptions. The lieutenant's hands trembled as he typed. The screen flickering before his eyes widened. He swallowed, voice shaky. Name: Shaw Harper. Rank: Petty Officer First Class. Branch: United States Navy. He paused, breath catching. Unit assignment: Naval Special Warfare Development Group. The air shifted instantly. A ripple of disbelief swept through the hangar. DevGru, SEAL Team 6, the name spoken only in reverence and whispers. The lieutenant's tone deepened as he continued, the sterile data turning into living myth. Primary specialty: Special Operator First Class. Advanced qualifications: Lead Breacher, Master Training Specialist in Close Quarters Combat, Halo Parachutist, Combat Diver. The list went on, each line more unreal than the last. Years of relentless training, endurance, and precision beyond ordinary limits. The Rangers of Alpha Team stood paralyzed, their arrogance dissolving into awe. They were staring at royalty in their profession, and they hadn't even known. Combat deployments, the lieutenant read, voice unsteady. 12 total: Afghanistan, Iraq, Horn of Africa, plus 5 classified above top secret. The words hung like ghosts of wars fought in shadows, of missions never recorded. Awards and decorations, he went on. Purple Heart, Bronze Star with Valor, 3 oak leaf clusters, Silver Star, 2 clusters. He hesitated, eyes widening at the final line. And the Navy Cross. Gasps filled the hangar. The Navy Cross, second only to the Medal of Honor, a mark of unparalleled heroism. To earn it once was to be immortalized. To earn it as a SEAL was near mythic. Captain Mason Red stood in the doorway, hollow, his confidence stripped bare. The woman he'd mocked and tried to humiliate wasn't just capable. She was one of the most decorated special operators alive. His career wasn't merely over, it was irrelevant, a forgotten footnote in the story of Harper Shaw. Colonel Everett Kane let the silence stretch, heavy as armor. Then he stepped forward, stopping just inches from Red. "Harper Shaw," he said, and the words straightened his spine. Every inch of him suddenly the soldier he'd always been. To everyone's astonishment, the decorated Marine colonel, a man who had commanded thousands, raised his hand in a slow, immaculate salute. He was saluting a petty officer. When he spoke, his voice was low, rough, and full of reverence. "On behalf of the United States Marine Corps, I offer my sincerest apologies for the unprofessional and disgraceful conduct of Captain Red. What we saw today wasn't a drill. It was a master class." He held the salute, his gaze fixed on her. That was the finest display of single-operator CQB proficiency I've seen in 32 years of service. For the first time, Shaw's expression softened. She came to full attention, movements crisp and deliberate, and returned the salute. "Thank you, Colonel," she said, two simple words that carried more force than any of Red's loud speeches. The story of what happened in the kill house spread across Fort Redridge like wildfire, not through official channels, which were sealed quickly, but through whispers, barracks chatter, and late-night retellings. It started as rumor. "Did you hear about the Army captain who got destroyed by a Navy girl?" Then came the truth, carried by those who had seen it firsthand. The Navy girl turned out to be a SEAL. Then Dev grew. The impossible 47 seconds became legend, a new holy standard for close-quarters mastery. The kill lane was unofficially renamed Shaw's Run. Someone taped a hand-drawn sign to the door, and no one dared take it down. The tale became a living warning. Arrogance blinds faster than any flashbang, and the quiet one cleaning her weapon in the corner might just be the deadliest person in the room. For Captain Mason Red, the fallout was immediate. Colonel Kane reassigned him to a dead-end logistics post in the middle of nowhere, the kind of place where careers go to die. But his real punishment wasn't the transfer. It was the wreckage of his pride. He had to face the vast gulf between who he thought he was and who Harper Shaw truly was. The experience broke him down and somehow built him back up into someone better. Months later, soldiers at his new post noticed the difference. The once arrogant officer had grown quiet. He listened more than he spoke. He asked instead of ordered. A young lieutenant struggling with land navigation once saw him approach, not with ego, but with encouragement. He didn't give her answers. He asked questions that helped her find them herself. In the most humiliating way imaginable, Red had learned that respect isn't taken. It's earned through competence and humility. His downfall turned him into a better leader, maybe even a better man. Meanwhile, Harper Shaw remained exactly as she'd always been. Calm, steady, untouched by the legend her actions had sparked. She met the growing admiration the same way she'd met Red's arrogance, with unshaken silence. When a group of young rangers, the same ones who'd laughed during her humiliation, approached her in the mess hall expecting a speech or rebuke, she gave them neither. She simply looked up from her tray and said quietly, "Don't focus on the noise. Focus on your front sight post. Focus on your trigger squeeze. Focus on your breathing. Master the small things every single day. The big things will follow." Then she returned to her meal. Conversation over. Her humility wasn't performance. It was who she was. The quiet professional doesn't chase recognition. The work itself is the reward. Her legend wasn't sealed by what she did in the kill house, but by how she carried herself afterward. She spent her spare hours at the range, not showing off, but mentoring, a young Marine struggling to qualify with his rifle. She didn't yell or command. Instead, she corrected his stance, adjusted his grip, and taught him the rhythm of steady breathing. A single nod from her meant more than 100 shouted orders, and within 2 days, that Marine rose from failure to expert. The most lasting symbol of her run wasn't her medals or her record. It was a single brass casing. After the exercise, the rangemaster, a battle-worn sergeant who'd seen thousands pass through, walked into Kill House 4 and found one red sim-round casing from Shaw's rifle. The final shot, the perfect one. He polished it until it gleamed, mounted it on a dark wooden plaque, and placed it in the facility's main hall among polished trophies and portraits of generals. The plate beneath it read, PO1 Harper Shaw. Shaw's Run, 47 seconds. Perfection is a process, not a performance. Assume nothing. That single casing became sacred, a quiet testament to the strength of silent excellence. Years went by, but Shaw's Run never faded. It became legend, stripped of date, rank, and context, pure tradition. Every new class of soldiers, Marines, and sailors at Fort Red Ridge heard it before they ever touched a trigger. Instructors would march them into the main hall, their boots echoing across polished floors, and stop before the glass case. The brass casing shimmered softly under the lights. "Look here," a grizzled master sergeant would begin. "You see that? That's not a trophy. It's a reminder." His voice would grow low and deliberate. That casing came from the rifle of a warrior smaller than most of you, quieter than all of you, and better than any of us. She was dismissed, insulted, underestimated by a loud captain who saw her size and gender, but never her skill. He'd pause, letting the silence speak for itself. He tried to humiliate her. 47 seconds later, his career was over, and a legend was born. His gaze would sweep the room, meeting every young, anxious face. Before you step into that kill house, before you touch a weapon, remember this. The most dangerous person in any room is never the one who boasts about it. It's the one you overlook, the one whose name you don't know, the one who's mastered silence. Then he'd lean in slightly. Your assumptions about what a warrior looks like will get you killed faster than any bullet. Competence, discipline, humility. That's what keeps you and the person beside you alive. That's Harper Shaw's legacy. The story became armor against arrogance, the same kind that destroyed Captain Red. It reshaped the culture of Fort Red Ridge, replacing empty bravado with respect for quiet mastery. The lesson was clear and absolute. True strength doesn't speak. It simply is. Her ultimate legacy wasn't the record, the salute, or the downfall of a captain. It was the shift she sparked. Her influence lived in every soldier who listened to, the quiet teammate, in every instructor who taught with patience instead of pride. It became woven into the DNA of the training center itself, carved deep into its foundation. Ego is the enemy of excellence. Harper Shaw proved beyond question that a warrior's worth isn't measured by rank, size, or voice, but by one unbreakable truth: the relentless, silent pursuit of mastery. Her silence was never emptiness. It was power in its purest form, the calm eye of the storm, the confidence of someone with nothing left to prove, because her actions already had. Her story became timeless, a reminder that respect can't be demanded or gifted. It must be earned, quietly and undeniably, through excellence. Her legend endures as a beacon for all who understand that what you do will always thunder louder than what you say. For more stories where quiet mastery triumphs over arrogance, and where silence speaks louder than pride, subscribe to Captain Joe's Stories.